So sorry.
That's okay.
Are you sure? Not going to run screaming.
I asked you if it was recording, but I was like,
It says end recording.
Yeah, so that's a theme.
Hey, thank you so much for being here. This is Kat Hobson, the host of Fate Magazine Radio, and I'm so glad you're here because Carl's having a fit over on the other side of the table. I am really having a good time. I am at the Ozark Mountain UFO Conference, and you wouldn't believe all the great information that's been being shared. And I am really excited because I have Dr. Jim Segala, right? And he just did a presentation that was absolutely brilliant. And I was interested because he's doing with physical symptoms and experiencers what SCU is doing with craft. And he is seeking information, he's documenting, he is trying to understand what's happening with this phenomenon. And he's in a great place for that, actually, because there's a lot of experiencers here. And he has also developed a device and program, MUPAS, that we're going to talk about. And can you describe MUPAS?
Sure. So what we found was that when people do have experiences and they have these profound experiences, there is some energy that's coming from some outside, some vector that actually is creating a situation where they have experiences. Like if somebody sees a craft, somebody sees an orb, or somebody sees like a shadow figure or something, it's something that is being portrayed for them. So there's some energy around them that is actually making this thing happen for them to see. And what we try to do is we say, okay, we understand that it's happening to you, but at the same time, what we want to do is we want to record all the environmental signals around them to see if anything is being pinged because of that energy presence that's there. And the reason we do that is very, very important because we want to have a good, solid scientific data point that makes it so we can then take that and build off of that to other scientific data. So having the two scientific points line up is the most important thing, and that's what we're trying to achieve with this equipment.
Well, it's one thing for someone to say they're an experiencer or that they saw this or they saw that, but I'm a member of the Scientific Coalition on UAP Studies, and it's really important to have data to back that up. And really, because what you're doing is the counterbalance to what SCU does. And I think that's very important. And I don't really know that I had contemplated doing it from your side to be able to get the information and the dig down into it,
right,
that you're doing.
Well, what you find out, and I think MUFON is actually coming to this conclusion that UAP sightings and UAP interactions and experiences are one and the same. It's just another variation of it. So
Yes.
Whatever you apply towards that interaction with the unknown being some kind of thing that you see, is basically causing the same type of thing physiologically in your body as just having a regular experience. So you can now say everything we learned about, John Mack learned and all these people learned, we can apply it now to another group of people, another group of phenomenon interactions.
And I think that continuity is very important. Yet we have better tools, more accurate tools, and different levels of data to dig into. So I think that's really a very exciting thing.
Yeah, one of the things we definitely take advantage of, and I'd say anybody that's doing this, and I encourage all, because we don't want to be the only people doing this. We want to have lots of people doing this so we can all put our data together. But we have to utilize the amazing technical tools that are available that can take somebody's narrative, the stories. I mean, these long stories, we get pages and pages of these stories and break it down so we know exactly how they felt, what they're really talking about, what was their interaction, how did they do it, was it something that they were frightened, was it euphoric, what was their sentiment when they did that? And those are the things that are really going to tell us what happened, how it happened, and was this something that was created by a benevolent thing or somebody that was like a sinister thing?
Right. Well, sometimes in the heat of the moment, it's difficult to ascertain the difference.
It is, and there's a lot of people that report coming out of these things and being just scared, and you know they're here standing up and they're going through the day and they're very very anxious. But a lot of other people report that when they finish with the episode of experiencing, they feel amazing. They feel like they learned something. Like there are people that report that they've had this experience where they went forward in time and they were talking to somebody that actually was in some future setting, and they learned something that they never learned before.
That's pretty cool. I would like to do that.
Yeah, and there's people that
I
report
would
that
like to do that.
they've talked to people in the past, so you don't know what's going to happen.
You know, one of the things that brings to mind for me, and we haven't really talked about this, is like, I'm going to bring Chris Bledsoe into this with his UFOs of God and, you know, angelic kind of, you know, feelings from what he sees. And is there a lot of people, or are there a lot of people that you're speaking with that may be bringing that connotation to it?
I think so. I think what you're going to find in general is that, you know, there are people from all walks. I mean, this is across the board. There's a lot of people that are going to come into this thing with their own views, and they're going to have their own type of data. That's why one of the things that we're trying to do is with Rice University, we formed a union where we want to standardize how people do these experiments. So you have people doing experiments on UFOs, you have Chris is doing, you know, his kind of thing, but we want to have a standardization. So at the end of the day, after all this is done, we put all the data together and then we disseminate it out to the rest of the world. So that so it's like anybody can come in and anybody can go out. So
Right.
it's a unification of all the data collection and data presentation, basically.
Well, you know, that's important. That's so important. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to think when I heard about what you were doing and the information driven stuff, because it's physicality.
Right. It's part of it's what's happening around their body. But one of the important things that we decided right in the very beginning is that you have to give the information, and you get the information from people. So we have to give it back to the people. But you give it back to them in a way that they want to see it. You know, they
Right.
don't want to have to do the scientific part of it. So you have to give them the ability to work with it and see it and understand it. And a lot of the participants, and we have over 300 now, almost 350, that really use this thing on a day-to-day basis, not as a scientific tool, but really as a coping tool or an understanding tool
Oh,
that
wow.
allows them to really deal with it. And we got some significant funding from, we have several phases of the study. The current phase it's on is being funded by somebody in the past phase that had a big change in their lifestyle and their child lifestyle, because they came into the study and they were able to cope with this. They had some really
That's-
severe experiences, and they said, well, this is like changed our life. So
That's pretty amazing.
while they were doing that, they said, you know, and it ended the study, unfortunately, and they had to go back to their normal way of dealing with it. But
Yeah.
they said, if you ever fire up the study again, we would like to get involved and fund it. So that's they're funding us for the second part of the study, and it's been amazing.
That's such a cool thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I couldn't imagine how that would feel. You know, to feel like you've been fighting this, you've been doing this, you've been experiencing this, and then all of a sudden you're not alone.
Right.
I think that just that little piece of knowledge would be so liberating, because if you're scared, you're locked down.
And then one of the things that we've learned, in fact, my wife does a lot of this. She organizes all this. What we do is we offer anybody that's experiencing and having a hard time dealing with it, we offer them to talk to somebody that's been doing it a long time, learn how to deal with it. So we have these counseling type sessions where people come in and they can either chat or they can do a video chat or something like that, and just talk to somebody that's been around a really long time and figured out how to basically make it part of their lives.
I don't think most people realize that there are people that have been living with this for most of their
Yes,
lives.
Yeah, some
And-
people go back to their childhood where they have the first incident back when they were very, very young, maybe 5 or something. They had something happened ever since then. It's just progressed on and on.
That's, it's actually kind of freaky. Not like they're freaky, but like the experience to last that long in someone's life when it's so anomalous.
Yeah, it's almost like they get this connection, and then once that connection gets established, it just keeps going on and on. One of the interesting things we find out as you pull in all this data, there always seems to be this point in their lives where it starts and nothing happened prior to that, and then it just cascades after that. Like they'll have a medical event where they'll have like a high fever. Like we had a lot of people say that after the COVID, because a lot of people had a high fever during the COVID, their brains seemed to be different coming out of it, and they were more susceptible to having these experiences. So it was actually started at that point. We get reports of people that had trauma, or like an accident or something like that. They would hit their head in the dashboard. After that, they would have amazing abilities to have to have these experiences and really do some interesting things. So
Wow.
it seems that your brain somehow gets reset during these medical episodes where you either hit your head and like some blunt force trauma or something like that, or you have a high fever or something like that, where your brain gets reset. It makes it so it's more open to receiving this, and then all of a sudden they start having these crazy experiences that
That's
they never had
fascinating.
before.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
I mean, because if you look at COVID, with how many people were infected,
a lot.
I mean, it's a vast number globally, and then survived it. I mean, and if you lost somebody in COVID, I'm so sorry, because we all did. I'm not trying to disrespect that at all. But if you survived and you had been through that, I guess almost a near death experience, if your fever was that extreme,
Yeah.
then wow.
Yeah, a lot of reports come back from us. We have like almost 40,000 reports from these people, and they say, a lot of them come up and say, it started in 2020 or started in 2020, just after I got through with COVID. I had very, very sick, not all of them in the hospital, but some were very, very sick. They had, all the symptoms, and then all of a sudden they just started that's when they had their first encounter.
Wow. What did you think when you saw this trend establishing?
Well, I didn't understand it at first. I mean, there was no way. It was like this inrush. And actually, I wasn't in the process of doing the study at that point. We had just closed down our first phase and hadn't kicked up the second phase. And I was being contacted by many, many people saying, where is your study? I need to start documenting, because all of a sudden, I'm seeing things, I'm witnessing things, I'm losing time, I'm seeing things, flying around the bedroom, in the house, and I need to get a hold of it. I need to, get a grip on this stuff. So, it was more organic growth that we had when people came to us and said, can you help us?
How did that make you feel?
Well, of responsibility. I mean, so one of the things that I worked for a lab in Austin, Texas, and one of the things that you learn in the lab is that if you figured something out and it's something that you need to help with, you have the responsibility to go do something about it. You can't just sit on it and say, oh, well, that's just the way things are. You have to go and react. So that's why I got kicked up to this is serious. I think these people really need help. That's why we brought in the people that we have a community where you can get into a group and just, talk to experiencers back and forth to say, how do I cope with this? And so that started the whole thing off. It was like a wake up call, like do something.
Sure. Well, I mean, do something that's big. I mean, especially in your field.
Yeah,
You've
and then-
got to start.
Try
And-
to do as much as you can for the people and bring the amazing tools available that are here right now.
Yeah. This is a great time to be a physician.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it really
Yeah.
is, because there's so much happening. And my dad used to be an executive director of a comprehensive cancer center.
Okay.
And just in the 80s, 90s to early 2000s, it was astounding. And I've got to think that getting through COVID was also, and now you're doing this to help. And what made you interested in UAP studies?
Well, I started working for a group in Austin, Texas, run by Hal Puthoff, who's a very famous physicist. Hal has the reputation of being able to look at phenomena objectively and make scientific decisions and judgments based on real scientific data. And because of that, he was actually funded by a European philanthropist who's very, very wealthy and gave him literally millions and millions of dollars over a period of 30 years. And he said, I just want you to go and solve problems. I want you to take things that people don't understand and understand them and tell people about it and publish and make the world a better place. That was his whole objective.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I really didn't know that. That explains a lot.
Yeah, so
I mean, it
that was
does
his
explain a lot.
mantra. And
Because he has been so involved in so many things.
viewing, and well, that was before remote.
Sure, yeah.
Now it's like, got into like, we said, one of the sponsor requirements or requests, we said, could you figure out how to do a spaceship? Okay, well, so here's some money to do that. Can you figure out how people communicate through telepathy? Okay, so we started a whole thing. So there was all these little pockets of investigation that we did throughout the years that I worked for him, and it's just amazing to be in that mix and learning
I'm
all
sure.
these things and
I mean, seriously.
discovering
We're
what you can't do, discovering what you can do.
I've got to think that discovering what you can do was your favorite part.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you push the limit a little bit. So there was a researcher by the name of Cleve Baxter who had a very interesting science investigation track. What he would do is he would have a yucca plant, and he was basically a lie detector expert. He worked for the FBI or something like that. And he one day, for some reason, he put the lie detector clip or whatever that thing is on the yucca plant, and he was doing whatever he was doing, and he noticed that the yucca plant was reacting to him a little bit. So every time that he would do something, like get up, or the yucca plant would have some kind of reaction. So he said, that was kind of strange.
That is strange.
And then he would say, okay, well, if you do that, then he would say that happened with all plants. So there was a book that he wrote that was very, very interesting, that kind of led you down the fact that he could actually take two yucca plants, separate them over vast distances. As long as they were initially together, he could make one react when another one was actually, motivated or messed with
Upset.
or something like that. Yeah. And so he proved.
So the yuccas were reacting like Joshua trees.
Exactly. So
Huh?
there was some connection. And then, of course, he ran the experiment where he said, okay, let's put him in a Faraday cage. Let's do all the scientific so we know that it's not some pheromone or something like that. And he did a great job. And that's one of the things that Hal said to us, as his science group, can we repeat that? But let's do that in a little bit more stringent scientific way. Because Cleve Baxter wasn't a scientist. He was an engineer or something like that. So we did that. We used mouse neurons, and we grew them up, and we did a whole bunch of experiments, and we showed that, we can take two populations of neurons, separate them on vast distances, and be able to have one react when the other one reacts. And that's the kind of thing you do in Hal's lab. And, of course, another thing you do in Hal's lab is understand why are these people getting injuries during, the time that they're having experiences.
Which is pretty significant.
Well, now that now that we've find out that there's so many people that are out there, we did experiments or we did analysis and said, and that was a big question I always had: how many people actually are experiences, people that actually have this unknown phenomena happen to them? And we did an analysis, and it was almost like 25% of the population, which is an enormous number. And if you think 25% of our population in the United States, I mean, that's several hundred million people. So that's a lot of people.
One, I'm blown away.
Yeah.
I really
a lot
am.
of people.
Because when you stop to consider, that's such a high percentage of our population.
Yeah. And you say, well, most of those people either don't come forward, they're on the sidelines watching and just creeping on the sidelines, just, seeing how things go and waiting for the right moment. And they're having their experiences of dealing with it or learning, but the Reddit community is just flooded with these people. The Discords are flooded. There's a lot of people viewing podcasts that are in this one. I mean,
Sure.
there's a lot of people out there interested in this, and they all have these experiences. So, if you pick 4 people at random in a population, one of them would say, yeah, when I was such and such, I saw this, and then ever since then, something's happened to me.
That's actually interesting because I'm old, and I started noticing things in the sky or having anomalous experiences when I was young. And my grandma used to just laugh at me because she was like, really?
Yeah.
Really? But we were always out at night because my grandpa was a railroad engineer. And if I was staying with them, we would get up to go pick him up when he got back to the roundhouse when he got back from his run.
Sure.
And so we were out a lot at night. And I mean, this was early 60s, mid 60s, when there wasn't a lot of aircraft. And there would be stuff often in
Sure.
the sky. And
And of course, no real way to report it.
no,
So it's all private stuff.
Well, I mean, I was a kid.
Yeah,
I was a kid.
that's unfortunate.
And so when the most interesting thing was it was Christmas Eve and we were on our way to go pick up my grandpa. My uncle was going and I just hopped in the car because I love cookies. I love trains. So, yeah, and they were giving me grief because I was seeing multicolored lights.
Okay.
And they're like, oh, that's Santa. Because it was Christmas Eve.
Yep.
Yeah, that's Santa. We've got to get you home. You're gonna miss out, And I thought that was really mean. But I did not miss out, just so y'all know. But it was so funny looking back because it wasn't flashing colors, it was all red. And
Something in the sky that shouldn't be there.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
your brain was trying to rationalize it, or they
They were,
rationalized it.
yeah. And I mean, they were never going to tell me anything. But my grandma had skill sets, parapsychological kind of skill sets. And so that was an interesting thing too, because she would recognize things before
Yep.
anybody else would. And, it was always interesting to see what they were going to harass me about. Because I was an inquisitive person.
Oh, that's good.
So an only child, an only grandchild for like 7 years. So I was not spoiled.
So along that line, we find out from our cohort of people that a lot of people that are experiencers have had family members that had that ability as well. So this is a
Really?
genetic thing that gets passed on, and that's just a scientist thing, Gary Nolan, that's looking into that, seeing if there's anything that's in the DNA, that some codon that actually creates this ability for people to be more susceptible to receiving this information. And it's like one of those profound things that if you pass it on from generation, that means that there's got to be something in there that's actually making you more receivable. It's almost like when you have your accident like that, you kind of get a brain reset and things get changed in your brain so you can receive. It might be that whatever that is, that these family members have that going forward.
Well, that is interesting because my mom was not like that until her sophomore year of college. And she was on her way to an Alabama game from Birmingham and was in a car wreck. And she had a closed head injury, but the other people were killed. So it was a tough wreck. And it was bad enough that Frisco brought my grandpa home and they actually broke a train in the yard for him to get out, which they did not do, to get to her in the hospital because they thought she wasn't going to make it. But when she was dying, I was her caretaker, and she was like, so what do you think? I'm like, what do I think about that? And it was, you get those skills from me. And I'm like, what are we talking about? But that's where she was going with
So
it.
she knew.
She knew.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, but I thought yours came as a result of your accidents or something. But it was, but I mean, I see craft. To my knowledge, I've never gotten to fly with anybody, which I'm a little bent about, because if they're going to show themselves,
Right.
I might as well get a ride. I'm serious. So anybody listening, just saying. But I'm a deck sitter. I'm a hammock layer. I'm a dog walker. I'm a dog player. I mean, I'm always outside.
Yep.
And so, but I live near an airport, so I also have discernment. I know if something is like weird. And I was very excited because a friend had told an experiencer who had brought a video to move to UFO Congress one year that what he had was Starlink,
Okay.
but there were only two. So I was very excited because I saw a very similar phenomenon outside my house. I live near refueling lane,
Okay.
and I know what they look like when they're practicing. So because they do practice at night and stuff. So I saw the same phenomenon that this young man had brought to Phoenix to show someone. And so I was excited. I told my friend, I saw that. I actually saw Starlink, because that's what he told the guy it was. I saw Starlink. I'm so excited. Woo. So I was at a conference in California, and we were doing a Skywatch. And a real Starlink went over. It had a lot more than two. And it didn't look like a gas barrel or an oil barrel,
Yeah.
So I was so disappointed that I hadn't seen Starlink. And my friend said, I never said that. And I was like, yeah, you did. I was standing right beside you. And if you're watching this, I was standing right beside you. So it was really one of those most bizarre moments, because this is somebody that is supposed to be helping people who are showing interesting things who did not. And then when I came back and said, this is what you said Starlink looked like. No, I didn't say that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, I am not the person you can do that to, But
Just it's interesting because lately, it's just been lately, I've been getting reports from people, and again, we get lots of this stuff.
sure you do.
The principal person sees something, photograph something with their phone. The person standing next to them doesn't see anything
Yeah.
and can't photograph it. So logic would say, okay, well, maybe, but what about the phone is not? The phone is not
Yes.
picking up.
Yeah.
And I don't get that. And that's just one of the most disturbing things lately. So I had a conversation with a bunch of, these are a bunch of people from Australia. And they showed me the video, and sure enough, I mean, it's legit. But they said, here's the video from the phone next to me. Nothing. And
That's
I
bizarre.
can't understand that. And as a scientist, that just bugs the heck out of me.
That's completely illogical.
Right. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't line up with our intuition. But what I tell everybody is that when you get to that point where you don't understand, that's when you start investigating. That's the thing.
Yes.
That's the data point that you have to kick it off. And I was talking to this person in Australia, and I said, and they were frustrated. They were upset about this whole thing. I said, I don't think you understand. You just have the most profound data point I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a real thing. So how do you, okay, now put some thought into that and figure out what mechanisms are in play that will allow that to happen in nature. Even if you have to bend some of the rules, don't be afraid to bend some of the physics rules.
Well, which is an interesting thing for you to say, because most people consider physics an absolute. It's a math, so it should be an absolute.
True.
But there are always things, that are very interesting in physics, because that's what creates the problems that have to be solved. You have to find a way to understand why this is happening.
Right.
It's not something, it's supposed to be absolute. It's not behaving in an absolute way. Physics is supposed to be straight, quick, clean.
That's right.
And
Obey the laws of nature.
yeah,
But when you work for Hal, so Hal's favorite line, and I remember this distinctly, he'd say, that sounds like a flyer. You would have these things that you put in front of me and say, look, this happened, and this is my hypothesis. He said, that sounds like a flyer. I want you to go try it.
yeah.
And that's what his job was, is to say, give it a shot. What's the worst that happens? So that's the kind of thing that we investigated.
Well, and that's the way to have, that's the only way to move research forward.
Yep.
Give it a go.
So you have an observation, come up with a hypothesis to kind of understand that, and then you experiment. That's the scientific method.
And sometimes devising the experiment is difficult because you're having to alter your mindset in order to create an environment
That's true.
that you're going to be able to be comfortable testing in. And I think that I have a lot of friends who are very rigid in their thinking relevant to UAP. And they should be, because that's how they were trained to think. And that's how, they want this specific way to understand something. And they're doing a great job with that. I'm not downgrading that mindset at all, because a lot of people wish mine were more that way. But because my observation points are sometimes a lot different than the average person, I can look at it and say, well, but I know that's what you want to do, but you're not accomplishing it. So how are you going to get around the way of thinking that this is happening? There's not a true understanding of why that's happening, but you've got to admit that that's happening. And you are a scientist, and you can't figure out how to evolve a program or a format that's going to get any other answer other than that's anomalous.
Right.
That makes scientists crazy. I mean, it does make scientists crazy. And, how do you get around that?
Well, so one of the things that you always have to invite in is the opposite interpretation of something. You can't, if you let somebody say, this is how it is, and they're going to go down that road, and if they're wrong, obviously that's going to be something that they have to backtrack. So you always invite the other side. If you have to have both, you have to have both sides of the argument. So when people ask me, all these naysayers, the people that nobody experiences, say, well, you need those people. It's not that you're going to prove right or you're, upstate them, but you need those people to drag it to the other side, because the odds are that it's somewhere in the middle.
Yes.
That's how politics is created, right? It's somewhere in the middle is the right thing to do. The science is somewhere in the middle. So you can't go down this euphoric road and go crazy.
Yeah.
You have to be drawn back the other way. So you have to deal with these people, and people have ideas. I mean, so you have to have a melting pot of ideas, and then out of all that comes the idea. So science is incremental. You do something, somebody builds on top of that, they take it in a different direction, and then eventually it pyramids and it comes out to the top and say, okay, here's the theory that explains exactly how somebody can take a picture of something and another person next to it has the same camera and doesn't take a picture.
Yeah.
So that's
And our cell phone cameras are jamming. I mean, that should not happen.
no, they're
At all.
extremely good cameras.
I know. Right?
Yeah.
I love them. But because I used to shoot a Nikon D90,
Yeah.
and my cell phone has almost replaced that.
Right.
So it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But when you started, okay, Skinwalker Ranch, Blind Frog Ranch.
Right.
And before we got all of this moving, we were talking about this. So Skinwalker is a little bit more freak of nature-y.
Yeah, it's got a little bit more negative connotations in the history And we see that going forward and the way you do experiments and and the information that you take out of it. Like, you don't see a lot of things buried there, but you see a lot of people trying to make lives there. But at Blind Frog Ranch, you see a lot of things buried, a lot of things that have been left behind by civilizations. So you have to ask yourself the question. So if you're a civilization, you want to like leave your stuff behind, you would go to or live someplace. You want to go someplace where you feel really good. So that's kind of where it just feels like that is more north of this, whatever line it is that discerns between maybe a negative connotation and positive.
So under that opinion, so Skinwalker, I know that there have been reports of really frightening things, whether, from beings to experiences to injuries to the cattle mutilations to, the bizarre energy that is part of Skinwalker. And, we had talked about Ryan and his books and his history that, in his reports that when he went into the house, the homestead house that was there, that he found that even the closet doors locked from the inside. So whatever was in there, the people that lived there felt very threatened by, and they were trying to seek shelter any way they could, and they were struggling with that. But based on also his reports of what he said would chase him away from the ranch, I don't know how they could have possibly felt safe just because they had a lock on the door. But you do what you can with what you got. And that was such an anomalous experience that they didn't know what they were dealing with, and they didn't know how dangerous it was. They were just scared.
So just to let you know, so most of the people, they're very religious that own the property and work the property. They're very religious people. Before they even get through the gate, they say a prayer.
I can see that.
Yeah, they all say a prayer. So it was very surprising for me to see that. All of a sudden, they stopped the car. I was in the car, and they said, we have to stop and do a prayer. So they do a prayer, and then they go in. So that tells you something.
Well, I know that the Navajo Rangers do that.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know Michelle.
Yeah. And, I love Michelle. She's so cool.
Yeah.
But, it's just one of those things that the average person going to work doesn't feel the need to do that.
No, but Michelle has I don't know what it is, but she puts something on her skin that before she goes in there, she says, I need this to protect myself. And I said, okay.
Isn't she amazing?
She is. Yep.
So she probably protects you too. But, I would think. So, what do you think? I mean, because you are a man of science and you're dealing with two locations that have varying anomalous activity. And it's not something that I feel like your education really prepared you for, other than the research side. And then, you connect with Cal and you're kind of in a position that you're dealing with things that you can't explain.
Right.
How does that work with your scientific side?
Well, so what he's always said to me is that the first thing you can't do, or the most important thing you can't do, is jump to a conclusion. That's the problem with a lot of people that are not, trained. I've met a lot of people that are on the ranch that they see something and bam, they already have it all worked out. They know they know everything about it. And what you do is you just spend the rest of the time proving what you just said.
Yeah.
Looking for only evidence that supports that. So one of the big things that he said is that you can't go ahead and have a hypothesis. You can't go to theory right away.
No,
you have to do the experiments. You have to let the data speak for itself.
And sometimes working those hypotheses can take a while.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
it took 2 years to do our first phase with and it took a couple of years to do the second phase or the first phase too. So it takes a long time to get all the data together, get it right. And then, this one's, who knows how long the current was going to take, but we're in for the haul.
Well, I'm glad, because I've been fascinated by this since I was an adolescent. And, I didn't realize how endangered the people actually felt while they were living there. And because there were stories about Skinwalker Ranch before they ever fled.
Right.
And it was one of those things that you just really wrote down to just a scary book, you know. And then I can't remember who wrote the first book I read about Skinwalker, but it was
Keller? Oh, that was, oh no, that was before him. Yeah.
but I don't know who was living there at that point either, but I know that so many people have fled that valley.
Yeah.
I mean, the valley itself, not just the ranch. And you know, you just kind of, I can't imagine feeling a need to flee my home, and especially one that was still mortgaged. I mean, you know, if you were still trying to make a living, and you know, your whole world is upside down, and it's bad enough that that's okay with you.
Yep. So there's somebody that reached out to me. I won't mention his name, but his family owns a property adjacent to Skinwalker on the backside, not on the Mesa side, the other side. And they have the same type of things going on in their property. He's been suffering significant changes in his physiology and his personality. That was just this like incredible onslaught of like, holy cow, this something bad is happening to this individual. And so you get to the point where you say to yourself, you know, what is this asking them to do? I mean, is this something that is causing them to do that, or whatever the case may be? So it's just like this big warning sign. There's people that I talked to that said, I would never step anywhere near that place.
Right.
And then, you know, if they're scared of the hitchhiker's a big thing that they're concerned about. They want to bring it back to their family. And I guess I get asked that a lot, you know, did you ever bring something back to your family? And, you know,
What did you?
I don't know. I mean, my wife and I talked about this. We do have somebody that has a very strange autoimmune disease that was developed. But and their parents, my son and daughter-in-law, were on the ranch when I was there, and they spent some time. And then now their son has a problem. But you know, is that a case where we can pin hitchhiker syndrome? Is that part of the Skinwalker law? We don't know. It's very difficult to tell, but there's a lot of people that said, I'm not even going to test the waters. I'm not going to tempt fate. I'm not doing this. So I don't blame them. 100% don't blame them.
Well, you know, it's that's pretty close to home.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, that's pretty close to home. And I don't think that I would probably go there. I don't think that I would not go.
I would go there with somebody that's experienced on how to deal with it, like a Michelle or something.
I would go
like
with
that.
Michelle. Michelle, I would go with you.
In fact, she's the first one that brought me there
Yes.
and walked me around, showed me all things happened. And just amazing.
So, you know, one of the things that choked me out was way back when they were opening this well and Travis got radiation burns and all this other stuff. The llamas. The llamas broke my heart.
Yep.
I'm an animal person, but you know, that has to be so trippy because there's no reason that wouldn't happen to some person walking around the ranch in the dark.
No, I agree. Yeah.
And so that's just tripping.
Yeah. It was a bad, when we got there, it was like they got brutalized. I guess there was a pack of dogs that really tore them up. But, you know, it's just bad things happen there. I think one of the things that going back, you know, before this current ownership, Bigelow spent so much money on that property trying to understand what was going on.
Yeah.
And he got just so frustrated because every time that he thought he had it nailed, he would set up an experiment to go measure it here, and it would end up being someplace else.
Yeah.
It'd manifest itself way on the other side, but you know, it would be like almost accelerated and amplified. You know, just
I
to
can't even
prove.
imagine that annoyance.
And
He's
here's
so
the guy spending millions of dollars
Yes.
getting this instrument and scientists and all this other kind of stuff. And he just got frustrated and threw his hands up and said, "Look, I can't continue this."
Yeah.
Because what his hope was that he would figure this out and be able to use it for his stuff,
Yes.
in his businesses.
Well, he is very innovative. I mean, he definitely thinks outside the box,
Oh,
and doing
yeah.
that would be indicative of it.
Yeah.
You know, I know there are different opinions. Bigelow, I think he's brilliant because he puts his money where his mouth is. He becomes interested in something like this,
Right.
and he'll really bust a hump to get answers. And look at all the things that he has changed in the world.
Sure.
He is somebody I think is very cool.
Yeah.
But I'm just so. I was surprised when he got that annoyed. I really was, because I know he's faced, issues with development in the past, and to be so thoroughly done was really an interesting thing.
And he had two properties that
Mhm.
he owned. And he tried to get the experiments to happen on both, to repeat the experiments. So he did it right. He had the
He did.
right scientific method. So, I give him a lot of credit. And Hal was his advisor. Hal Puthoff was his advisor, and walked him through it and got him through it and stuff like that. And in fact, one of the things that when I first started working for Hal back in 2010 or something, is the data that Robert Bigelow had collected
Right.
through his, through Eric Davis and all that stuff, boots on the ground when Eric Davis worked for Bigelow. He eventually worked for Hal. But anyway, so going through that data, that was my first exposure to anomalous events.
Really?
Seeing some of these things they would do site surveys every day, so they made these poor scientists walk around, their instruments every single day. He was a pretty
Wow.
get out there. I want data every single day.
That's a
He
pretty
charted it.
That's a pretty big area
It's
to do it every
5
day.
acres.
Yes.
Yeah. So, anyway,
And
so-
surveying's hard work too.
yeah,
That's a hard job.
But I had the ability, or I had the privilege to actually work with that data, try to understand it. And one of my things that I had done well before that was numerical analysis of large volumes of data. So that's kind of what was in my wheelhouse. And then as I looked at it, it was like all these surprising things. Is wait a minute, how did this happen? How can you explain this? And that's when I started to, when Hal kind of opened the gates and said, look, find something you don't like and the data, go figure it out. I mean, this is your job. So that's when you start really initiating and going after and trying to understand things, coming up with hypotheses and then experimentals to prove your hypothesis and, kind of going down that road.
What was the strangest thing that he gave you to go figure out?
Oh, so Linda Howe,
Yeah,
her,
know her.
thought that she had a subcutaneous something injected into her body. She had all this
Oh.
information. So it was one of those situations where, and it actually turned out to be not real because she made a mistake or something like that. But that was my awakening. And then as you get in that mix of like, wait a minute, this could really have these. So Hal said, we have all this data that says that people have this, and here's all the evidence. Can we figure it out for this poor individual that had this happen to her? And I said, wait a minute, this is real. It was like right at the beginning. I said, this can't be real. People don't really get this, do they?
Oh my God.
And then the more and more I look at the data, I said, oh God, this
Yes, it is real.
I'm going to get out of here. But and I felt sorry for it. Thank God it
Well,
was something
sure,
that
yeah.
was not something, it was something completely different.
And I'm going to say she is not an alarmist.
No, not at all.
This
she's a
woman
pro.
is so
Yeah.
used to dealing. I mean, she was
Yep.
a journalist.
Yep.
Before any of way before Ancient Aliens, way before everything. She has been a journalist her whole
Yeah,
life.
she's a-
And she's bad to the bone, and she does not scare. So for her to be so convinced that there was something going on,
to call Hal up.
yes,
Say,
she
"Look."
was serious. She would be serious.
Look.
Yes.
My education during that period is like, this is not. How could this possibly get happening?
You
That
know,
was one of my wake up calls.
well, that place is known for them.
Yeah.
And, I get so tickled. And if I offend anybody, sorry. But I get so tickled with the Mesa
Yep.
because the stuff around the mesa appears to be quite bizarre. And I know that Travis was catching a lot of flack because everything, the answer to everything was a rocket. And it would never behave the way that it was supposed to. And in all fairness, Travis Taylor is a rocket scientist. He does know what these things are supposed to do. He's one of those people that if he's in the room of geniuses who are absolutely convinced that they're the smartest person in the room, he's going to be pretty sure they're wrong. But he won't probably be wrong because he is that kind of almost a savant on a lot of his stuff. He's so brilliant. But, it's just when in your case, when you are conducting experiments and you're not finding anything, there's nothing that's responding the way it's supposed to.
Right.
And it's supposed to. How do you just not throw your hands up and say, this place is just freaking nuts. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, that's when you have to
That's when you go to blind frog, right?
Yeah, you go to, but that's when you say, wait a minute, this is an opportunity. If I can't explain something, that's an opportunity. And that's something actually, that's something that Travis can really put out.
It is.
It's something that, you're faced with things that just don't make sense. And
Mhm.
how can you, and first of all, you can't design an experiment unless you know you can figure out how to repeat that. And that's what they got so set about.
Yes.
So you just have to get a grip on what it is and try to take a little piece of that, try to explain it, and then build and build and build. So you have to do things like it in incremental basis. So,
Yes.
and that's one of the issues I had with the TV show, being on it, is that they don't want you to do that. It was like, if you find something, we're done. We're on to the next scene. We're on to the next thing. So that was not something that was very inviting to a scientist. I don't know how perhaps does it.
Well, because Travis has a very strong personality. And I would bet he does it anyway.
Yeah. Do whatever
He may do it on his own time.
Yeah.
He may do it on his own
Well, that's
time.
what we ended up doing.
Your own time, your own
went up
time,
and did
you
our-
go do it. Yeah.
But it was
But-
interesting. So the big answer to your question is that if you run into something you don't understand, it's an opportunity to learn something. So that's
What if you never get the answer?
well, you just keep forging ahead and trying. And if you can't find an answer, that means that you're looking in the wrong spot. So, and then one of the things that I try to do is invite other people to help and get their fresh ideas. If you're just sitting there stuck, you try to, and that's the whole idea of what we're trying to do, is that create a basis of data, let other people use that data to bring it forward. They're probably smarter than I am, and let them bring that forward, and maybe they can have the answers that someone can build on top of them, and on and on and on.
Mhm.
But it has to be started, and I think it is started. There's a lot of stuff that's actually starting. It's just that it has to get momentum and keep going.
I just think that I'm a creative. So when I get stuck, I'm just like, well, doing the next,
Yeah.
Unless it's really important. I will stick anything out if it matters, right? But I really admire so much the tenacity that it takes to continue, like with the drones, when the drones kept crashing.
Yep.
And you sit there and you're like, oh my God, the money. Oh my God, this. Oh my,
Yep.
And where is my continuity? Why is there nothing that's working appropriately? Why is it consistently inappropriate, but in different ways? I mean,
It's just something you don't understand yet.
just be nuts.
It's the opportunity to learn something and solve a problem. And if you leave it and you say, well, I'm not going to solve it, what you're doing is you're leaving in an unknown physical
Yes.
event that is out there waiting to be solved.
Well, I don't know, that night that all this transcribed, that was my favorite episode. But because the analytics had to be crazy. The analytics had to be crazy.
Sure.
I mean, there's a lot of my favorite episodes. I don't watch it consistently, but I do love the concept, and I've always loved researching and grabbing whatever I could to read about that ranch, so it really amazes me. And I'm always astounded by the fact that those people at Blind Frog go underground in that water because
Yep.
I'm a swimmer. I'm a diver. But in,
They go underneath in caverns,
yeah, no,
dark,
no, no.
muddy. God bless them.
I
Yeah.
am not that girl. And I don't know very many people who are that man. I mean, really, I think they're crazy.
Yeah, I need to look up.
I think they're
the-
crazy. I think y'all are wonderful. I think you're crazy. So, well, one of the things that I think is the energy on these two places, despite them being in the same geographical area, are bizarre. I mean,
It
you don't
is a
feel
bit
threatened when
different,
you're
yeah.
at Blind Frog. You probably do feel threatened somewhat when
Yep.
you're at
Yeah,
Skinwalker.
at Blind Frog, you go there, you're relaxed. And you walk around, you can look at the countryside, it's beautiful,
Yeah.
and you don't feel like, dude, on the Mesa, always seemed like there was something looking at you. I swear to God, it's like the weirdest thing. We would be sitting there at one of the houses, and you always like looking over your shoulder, looking at the Mesa, say, "Is there someone looking at me?" So,
That's interesting.
but at Blind Frog, it's like you just go there and you're basically looking at everything else. It's there's no threat. It's just very different. It's all it is. I don't want to put the two in contention with each other,
Well,
but
no, I mean, because
it's just very different.
that doesn't make them, in contention. It just means that the energy is different.
It's different, much different.
And because you are not really, I mean, you are a scientist, you're a doctor, you do understand the study but you also understand energy and that type of thing too, because that's part of human too. But I find it interesting if, as a rule, because we were prey for so long, if you feel that something is watching you, generally there is something going on.
Yeah, your immune system or your subconscious brain is always on the lookout
Yeah.
for your safety.
Yeah.
And even though you might not see it, your subconscious brain probably registers it, and it's putting the hairs on the back of your neck up and
Yeah.
and giving you in your heart. So that's why we have people wear these bio watches. So and we monitor their heart rate, and we monitor their tremors. So when people get nervous, they tremor. So we monitor those to see if there's an onset of something happening to them when they're having these experiences and they're seeing something. Are they anxious? Are they seeing, are they nervous? And it's just, it's an amazing correlation. We have MUFON people that go out to these sites with this equipment and they'll see something. And then all of a sudden, all of the watches that they have out there will start pinging and, they get nervous and then it's factual. They're actually seeing something.
Right.
They're not, your body can't make that up. So it's just amazing what your body is capable of doing. We're like the best scientific sensor ever, but
Yes.
we're the worst interpreter of the data, right? We make things up, we rationalize.
Gas, or am I dying from a heart
Right,
attack?
yeah,
It
right.
must be gas. I'm not going to the doctor. Yes.
But we have so many sensors and our body is just a big, a big sensing system.
Big tool.
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't consider that a compliment,
Ah.
but it is.
It is.
But I'm always just blown away so much because, like you said, it's almost bizarre with the number of people that are contactees
Mhm.
or abductees. Do you work with abductees as
Yeah.
well as contactees?
100%, yeah. So, but now there's a delineation that I think it's important. To be an abductee, I think it's two camps. It's like a physical abduction where you actually are gone.
Gone.
And then there's your conscious abduction. I think that 99.9% of the people that we work with they say that they don't feel that they were in their body anymore, but their body was still there. I mean, they didn't go anywhere. Nobody reported them missing or things like that. But 100% believe that our consciousness, because we don't really understand what our
No, we
consciousness is.
don't.
We don't know if it's not transportable. We don't know that. How do we know that? That
If
there's
we die, we go somewhere.
Exactly, right. So there is a precedent. So there is information that shows that there is this thing happening. So what's to say that we don't temporarily have gone someplace through some, maybe some intelligent being or some, some intelligence that allows us a conduit to do it? How do we know?
How fun
So,
would that be if we could figure that out? Because then we
Well-
could go and explore the
well,
universe.
that would be the coolest thing. Yeah. If we can understand what that is and find out how we're doing that, if we are, we could probably prove that we are doing that, and then we can understand how we're doing that. And then, of course, I mean, anybody would say, well,
Then the
maybe
sky's the
do it on
limit.
purpose. Yeah, do it on purpose.
Once around Venus, twice around Mars.
I would, yeah,
So,
travel to other places and things like that. I'm sure that's in our future someplace to be able to, if we figure this out, to say, okay, well, let's go do this.
while there are so many physiological things to affect with that, and to be able to control to make that something safe to do so you'd have some place to come back to, it really is a brilliant concept. Because,
Yep.
one of the things I think trips people out about abduction experiences is that all of you is gone, as a rule. I mean,
Right.
and I've talked to so many people who have had abduction experiences. It's bad enough when something happens to you and you're left here. I mean, you're still in your environment, but yet things that aren't supposed to be in your environment are creating pain for you. And I don't think that most encounters happen with beings that intend to cause pain.
I
don't think
100%
it's-
agree with that.
Yeah, I don't think it's an animosity.
I don't think their intent is to do that. I think it may be that the residuals are part of it that they don't, they slip up a little bit, like if, we accidentally step on something we're not supposed to.
Yeah.
We don't know that. So whatever this thing is very powerful. Whatever this is very powerful, and we don't know it's doing. But it certainly is. It might be the opposite. So we think our consciousness is being transported away. How do we know that it's not their consciousness that's being brought down here as well? And that's what we're envisioning, is them traveling to here. So we're saying, wouldn't it be cool if our consciousness could go like to some other planet? Well, maybe they're doing that,
Mhm.
and they figured this out already because
Yeah.
they're 1,000 years older than we are, and they've already figured this out already. We don't know that.
Well-
And it would be cool to kind of get a theory together that says, okay, how can we test this?
I would suggest that a good point of beginning would be with Tibetan monks,
So,
because they are able to
Yep.
transcend. I mean, transcendentalism is real.
Yep.
And I have often wondered why that's not being. I do know that if they're still a practicing monk and if they're living in a society of monks, that being able to interact with them is very difficult. But I know a lot of Tibetan monks who are living here. Some of them are teaching here.
Mhm.
They come and they teach transcendental studies. They teach Eastern religions. They do all kinds of things. They're in a lot of universities already. And I think that would be a good point to maybe start talking to somebody.
Yep.
So,
and then we have a lot of.
but if you start doing that, I want to know about it.
So we have a lot of people that are in the religious field, that teach religion, that are in universities, that are with religious studies, that we have available to us to allow us to understand what's going on. Is this something that has similarities between what the theologians say and what we're experiencing now?
Yeah.
So they're very interested in that.
I just think it would be so fun.
I think that's maybe our next phase of humanity.
Well, what's really fun is when you watch a monk go into, it's almost like a hyperstate, like, is that the right term?
I don't know.
I don't
but
think
it
that's
sounds,
the right.
It sounds very good.
But, well, there we go. But I do think that when you watch them in their meditation state and they're not there.
Mhm.
I mean, they're really not there. And that is discipline. And, you know, if discipline is what it takes to be able to transcend time or space, then that's already in place there. And I do think a lot of times when they're doing transcendental, I mean, when I do transcendental meditation, I'm unaware that, I mean, I'm not here. I don't feel that I'm in here. And that's been since I was an adolescent because I used it as escapism in bad situations.
And
So
I believe, I 100% believe that people have that ability, and some people don't know they have the ability. It happens to them, and they then say that is an out-of-body experience for them. So there are certain people that have the ability to do that, make it happen, and then some people just happens to, which says it's an innate ability within our bodies to do that. We just have to figure out how to control it like other people have done. If
Yeah.
monks can do it, then there's precedent that other people can do it.
well, and I think that that's it's one of the best theories I've ever come up with. I'm not a big, that's not true. I do think about all kinds of things like that. So it's just one of the things that I would love to do the once around Venus, twice around Mars thing
It would be interesting to be able to do that. So
with
No.
no propulsion system.
sure.
No
You're
propulsion
faster than
system. I
light.
don't
Sorry,
need
Hal.
that. Yeah.
I know you want to do it, but it makes sense. So why transport? You think about what we did. We went around the moon. So we
Yes.
spent all that billions of dollars to go around the moon for people, and maybe just being a researcher in this field is going to solve that problem and say, okay, I'm going to go to Mars. But I'm not
I'm going to see who's there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go tomorrow. I'll set it up for you guys when you get there.
Yeah.
It's just speculating that it's possible that people have the ability to do this already. We just don't know it, and we've been kind of picking around the borders a little bit,
Yeah.
seeing a little bit of it, and all of a sudden we're going to make a startling discovery where we say, oh yeah, by the way, we've had this thing in our brains all the time.
Well, look at how much seriously, how much of our brain is not mapped out.
Oh, God,
we
yes.
are an unknown.
Yeah.
And this is where we live. And we know next to nothing about here.
Mhm.
The only reason we know about through here is because everything is so well defined
Right.
through the actual living system, the actual mechanics of how we work. But the operating system is completely, and I will say completely, because with limited EEGs and things of that nature, some of the post-life research that happens on our brains and stuff, well, the brain's not working. So you don't know what you're missing to understand if you're doing it post-mortem. And
No, I agree 100%. I mean, there's so much we don't know.
how
but-
would you go about fixing that?
Well, maybe you don't have to fix it. You have to open up to different ways of looking at it. Like I said, when you have this insolvable problem that you can't get your head around, you don't understand it,
Mhm.
you have to look at it in a different way. And I think that's the whole building blocks of science, is that you get new people coming in, the new generations coming in. So, a lot of the older generation people are steadfast this way, but the new generations are very, very creative people.
Yes.
And they grow up in the AI industry, and
Yes.
they grow in the games and the iPads and the this. So they might bring another spin on it that's going to say, oh yeah, guys, here's the answer.
Yeah.
Right in front of you that we never saw before, because we're stuck with our norms and we're stuck with our stuff. So, it's an evolutionary thing. I mean, it's going to take a few
Yeah.
more years, but I think that we have the scientific background now to start understanding what the problems are, so we can start answering it.
I think, okay, this is a weird question because I'm pretty sure I know what your answer is. But to me, and I use Grok and I use a couple of different AI,
Mhm.
right? Because I use them for almost frivolous things that I want to answer to,
Yeah,
Things that,
absolutely. Yeah.
but it's making me more comfortable with using it. because I am going to start using it for some research I want to do. But I have to learn how to interact and interface with it so that it understands what I'm
Sure.
looking for. But what is your take on, AI being the demise of human ingenuity?
So I know, my opinion is that the incredible tools that we're seeing now
Mhm.
is already us.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize that all of the amazing things that Claude can do,
Mhm.
that ChatGPT can do, is just us averaged together. It's just all the literally,
Because it's
really,
coming from us.
it's all the stuff we've said on the internet for the past 20 years,
Yeah.
just put into an AI model, and it's just us answering the questions.
And it's just spitting out what we've already
Yeah,
said.
it's just that it's much better at organizing and giving it to us back the way that we want it and organizing. Because, we're not really good at that, putting
No,
things
we are
together.
not.
But
Some of us have ADHD and are terrible at that.
so you have a tool that allows you to do that, but it is just us. So I guess if you look at what is the source of all the data for like chat and stuff like that, it's like all the Reddit chats, it's all the it just all of the answers and the questions that people have all collected, literally trillions of pieces of data from us and just put into a model that we can use. So it's us. So are we going to take over us? No, it's never going to be smarter than us
No.
by definition, right?
Well, but it should.
It'll be more organized and
I was
more
gonna say,
able
it should be
to,
able to learn easier,
yeah,
right?
it should be able to learn the tasks that we tell it that we know how to do and extrapolate some. Yeah, I 100% agree.
Because that's what its ability to learn is the only thing that gives me pause. Because humans are not logical as a rule. The emotion gets in the way. Even the most logical human is still human. And so everybody has their thing that can block the best plans to be able to control whatever. And, I actually asked because I just figured that when I use Grok, I'm looking at Alon's brain and what a brain to be in, right? But anyway, I just think that if you were to go into any AI system, feed in the information that you have about Skinwalker.
Mhm.
Have you ever tried that?
I tried on other things, not that particular one, but
That would be a fun one to give it a go. I might do that tonight.
yeah, but
That would
we're-
be fun.
Yeah, and gather all the information it has that it collected over the years, like there's tons and tons of it, amalgamate it together and put it together and create consensus reports and give you interpretations that you're asking for. And it would be better at doing it than you could ever do it
Without it.
because it has, you really think about it. So like for instance, right now they're solving there's 10 tough mathematical problems that were postulated by some very famous Fields winner, a mathematician. And it's like $1 million each or something like that. They just solved one. One of the AI models just solved it. Yeah. And
It would do that with those puzzle pieces.
oh, it could be.
That would be cool.
One of those,
My husband would love that.
but it would show.
That's his favorite thing.
It shows you that this thing is not smarter than us. It took all of the proofs that it's made mathematically
Mhm.
over the years, and it had all that at its disposal to solve the problem. We have the same thing, but that we just can't piece the things together as well.
Right.
We forget about this. Oh, I forgot about that.
Well, yeah, organizational skills.
Organizational skills. So computers don't forget anything. They have everything at their disposal. They have ways of looking it all up. So it's great tools, but it's us.
I think it's so fun. I
It
really
is.
do. I love.
Yeah, I love
this.
using it. I have to use it. Yeah,
Well,
because
yeah.
I know. I just have to use it because it's
Fun.
cool.
I know, right? Because when my husband was like, "What is that?" The app on my phone.
Oh, right.
I was like, "That's Grok," and he was like, "What the heck is Grok?" And I said, "It is absolutely Alon's brain. Basically, it is Alon's AI. Elon Musk is so innovative, and
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
I don't
Yeah.
care what people.
He's
really
invented a
think
few
about it.
things. Pretty-
Yeah, and I mean, he'll do, right? But I like his brain. And I think that stuff that he has done for society and our planet and stuff far overrides anything else. I mean, he is just so innovative. But I tried using Chat GPT, and it to me felt like it was more designed for kids
Oh, really?
because
Okay.
I didn't get the equivalency of answer
Okay.
that I was looking for, comparatively speaking. It was much more easy, you know,
Okay.
lower level
Yeah.
research answer. But I just think that there's so much happening, and the stuff that you're doing, you know, I'm just blown away by that because you're going to be part of getting the answers to why this is happening, how this is happening to experiencers. And, you know, the fact that even the wound type that
Yep.
you had, that, yeah, is it going to be a specific species that's interested in doing this, or are these all going to be radiation burns that happen because of in various parts of the body because of how, you know, how they were placed when they encountered a craft? Or is this going to be something that a being from somewhere else doesn't realize that they're creating this discomfort when they're, you know, touching or stroking or, you know, whatever is going on? Because the way your mind works is so interesting. And I could see some of that in your presentation today.
Okay.
And I like that. I mean, we need people that think creatively as well as, you know, with linear thought. And when you have somebody that can do a mix of that,
Mhm.
it brings so much to the table.
It does. Yeah. And I
And you
think
do.
the problem that we're trying to fix here, it's so complex and diverse that you need to have a lot of different types of people looking at it with different disciplines. That's why right now I'm working with a statistician. I'm working with anthropologists, working with a psychologist. So you have to bring in all these people. I'm working with somebody that is an expert at interviewing. So they do an interview style that is not, I forgot what it's called. It's interesting way of doing it where they pull the information out of you without actually ever asking you a question. It just, they have a way of doing that. So if they,
Conversation.
it's something, it's very, very something like that. And they teach a course in it up at Harvard where they're, this is how they, this is a course they teach for people to take. And it's just amazing that, and you need those you need all of those disciplines all focused on this one problem in order to solve it. And I think that's the way you do it. That's why
That's
these
so
groups
true.
are forming.
So too.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we have somebody waiting on the room, so we're going to have to wrap this up. And I have to tell y'all that I am so thrilled to be here. And this is just fantastic. I mean,
Yeah, great for being
thank you
here.
so much for your time.
Listen, it's understand that we've got a long road ahead of us, but it's a cool road.
And where can people find you if they have questions?
We have a website. It's experiencer.com, experiencer.network.com. You go there and you can actually look at all of our stuff, look at our papers, see all the research and things like that.
Well, and your devices, what?
It's MUPAS. It's a
Yes.
device that was designed way back when we were with HAL that just basically sits there on your desk and just records environmental signals. So you don't have to worry about it. It just lets you know what's going on around you. So you know when you're having your experience.
I think that's pretty cool. You know, because people always wonder. So with this, you want
What's
to
going on?
thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure.
I am just appreciative of that.
Yeah, thank you.
So we'll be back. There'll be some more added to this broadcast so that you will get to experience some more of this conference, the Ozark Mountain UFO Conference. And we'll see you later. Same cat time, same cat channel. Hello there. It's Kat Hobson. I'm here with the follow up on the Jim Sakala interview. And I hope that you enjoyed that because I thought he was brilliant. So I really would like to just talk a little bit about this really fantastic program that he had. And when I first saw him, I had been talking with his wife and trying to get an interview scheduled. And it was so much fun because she's brilliant too. And when I had the opportunity, I'm getting better, but I'm not great at doing these live interviews because I'm still learning the logistics of it. And I am, well, not live interviews, but my face-to-face interviews because I try to figure out the best way to do it. And I did 2 interviews at Ozark Mountain UFO Conference, one with Jim and one with Stephen Bassett. And y'all will remember the first time I interviewed Steve Bassett, he was in a coffee shop off DuPont Circle. And because he was trying to get from one place to another, and he ducked in for our interview. And it was a little bit tough because the video on his cellular was not working very well for him. So there was a lot of side shots and things like that. And this one was a little better. We'll see. I loved it. I think he is one of the nicest men. I think you're going to enjoy that interview too, because he really is all that in a bag of chips, just like Jim Sakala. But one of the things that I found interesting about Jim was this, the MUPA study that he has talked about. And this is really interesting to me. I have a friend who's acquaintance, I guess she's a friend too, that I know who is using one. And it's designed to answer a primary question. Do the experiences you have come from an external source outside of your mind, or are they entirely manifested in your mind? And he says, and I'm quoting from his, you can read this actually on the experiencerstudies.com/MUPAS. But most experiencers feel they receive their experiences from outside their minds from an external source, sometimes far away or even from another world. And so basically, if that was just your mind, something being transmitted to your mind, then would there really be a physical manifestation of an environmental changes? Would there be, I call them my spidey senses, right? If I'm on a paranormal investigation, or even if I get upset in an environment, sometimes you can feel them. But there are changes I have found when there is a paranormal, parapsychological situation happening. And so what they have been trying to do is figure out how these messages or these experiences vary from person to person. Is there electromagnetic environmental field changes? Is there, well, we'll learn more about that. But it's it's odd how each individual person experiences these moments. And so it's tough to get a grasp on, why is this happening? Why are they being, why do they make us feel so uncomfortable? And so, well, if you've been to a UFO conference, especially a large one, there are experiencer groups, there are break-off groups. They talk, they share, they discuss whatever physical manifestation may have happened, be it an implant or a bruise or being in a different location when you're done experiencing this. There's so much variation. And so what they're trying to do is create a technological device of some type that can, especially with AI, this helps, but be able to predict environmental changes, EMF if you're ghost hunting, right? But the same thing, because our body reacts to EMF fields. But hopefully technology can help experiencers recognize when a situation is going to happen. It's a big deal. Prepared is a big difference from just, snuck up on, somebody's popped up in your face, or, you've popped up in somebody else's face. But it's really wild when you have people getting a message transmitted to them, but they don't really understand why or where from or how is this really happening. This provides physical documentation of environmental changes, which is a big, hairy deal. And one of the things that I think matters the most is finding a way to be able to give any sense of peace to people that feel so out of control. They can't stop it. They can't understand it. They can't react with it in a way that they feel like they're in control. And hey, Tom and Nicholas, but it's really interesting to me because I have had experiences with humans where I felt that there wasn't control, and that's very disconcerting. And they're peers, right? Basically, they're not somebody that can, take you off Earth or change your entire environment, well, some of them can. You can be killed, you can be kidnapped, you can whatever by humans. And I feel like if you're being confronted by a species that you don't understand, you don't know, they don't look right, if you're seeing them, how much worse would that be? I mean, really. And people talk about, ETs and, UAP versus UFO. I mean, just because you change the name does not mean that you've changed people's reaction to it. I know people who have had experiences with off-Earth species, people. They didn't really look like people for the most part. But, and it was very disconcerting. They didn't know who or what they were seeing. And they did not know what the nature of that person was. A good example would be Travis Walton with his experience. When he came to in that craft, he knew he was hurt. He knew there was trouble. When he looked up or tried to get up, they looked like bugs. He tried to off them. He was fighting his way out. And so they left. And what came back were Nordics. human looking, beautiful, something that maybe wouldn't scare him so badly. Were they able to transform? Were they really a different species? I don't know. He didn't know either. But they were able to calm him to a degree, I guess. And they took him back. He was gone, 7 days? Because he walked into that watch from that craft, ostensibly. So if you had a way, particularly if there were some sort of bio tracking thing, so that you would understand what might be coming, if there were different markers, biological markers that could be picked up by it or something of that nature, so that you would have an idea of what you were going to be dealing with. But it's really interesting to me, because I've sat in experiencer groups. I am one, and the first time that I did, I was so surprised that other people had experiences that weren't very different from mine. And the facilitator who allowed me in there, I had to flip my badge, because technically I'm press, but I wasn't press in that environment. I was an experiencer in that environment. So I got the opportunity to hear other people, and sometimes, only sometimes, are these people aware of who or what they're dealing with. And this was so interesting to me in the context of the conversation, because how the mind interprets the messages that are transmitted to them varies from person to person. And he says may even depend on their situation and location. So when asked, the people were only sometimes aware or who or what are sending these messages or why they're getting them. And those are not the ones that are face to face, right? So I just think it's so interesting when you stop to consider all the different people on this planet who have had these various experiences, and they don't know who it is that they're interacting with. The ones that have negative experiences, if they knew that was happening, if that was coming back, maybe they could just kind of gird their loins. Maybe they could find a way to find peace and deal with it. Maybe they would find a way to go away. I don't know what their solution would be, but, it's almost just like forewarned is forearmed. It's going to make you feel a little better. And out of all the experiencers I've talked with, I've done Fate Magazine for 5 years. I've done Paranormal Experience for 10, moving toward 11. And I've talked to maybe 10 tops people that had positive interactions with that they were being abducted, for sure. But then again, I've talked to people that have, enjoyed their interactions, who, one's allowed to fly. She's a pilot of one of the craft. Oh my gosh, she is brilliant. And if you can go back and look and find my interview with Dolly Safran, Safran, you would love it. She's so brilliant. But, I've talked to people who have had children with their, not necessarily abductors, but the interactions. And those are very few, but it still happened. So there's all kinds of things to look at. Why, would you want to know? Would you want to know if you were about to have something like that happen again? Would that be something you wanted foreknowledge of? I just think it's incredible. I think it's incredible that there's a device that can read this energy. And I mean, that's not, well, kind of, I guess it is rocket science, but it's not, it's, everything is energy. So if they are recognizing the energy coming, I wanted to say that, and I'm going to read this because it's fascinating. And this is from the MUPAS study. It's experiencerstudies.com/MUPAS. And I don't have my glasses in, so I can't read what's after MUPAS, MUPAS. But experiencers feel they received their experiences. I read that. How the mind interprets these messages varies from person to person and may depend on their situation and location. When asked, experiencers are only sometimes aware of who or what is sending these messages or why they're being sent messages at all. For most experiencers, not knowing the reasoning behind the messages they're sent is uncomfortable. But technology can help in these situations by giving the experiencer a notion of a forthcoming event that may trigger an experience. Knowing what may be coming allows for some more control and better understanding of why that event was initiated in the first place. Technology can also be taught to recognize patterns and correlate experiencer events with other happenings around them, thus leading to a better understanding of their surroundings and energies that may be feeding the experience. So if that works, then you can somewhat control your experience. That's what it sounds like to me. And, that's all part of what's being done to help experiencers understand them. It was developed to learn how to predict an upcoming experience event and give some insight into the experience's content. I can't even imagine how many people it took working diligently to accomplish this. And in our MUPAS Phase 1 study, data was collected for over 3 years from over 35 beta testers verified to be longtime experiencers. That are continuously fed into the MUPAS AI alert engine so it can learn and understand how the experiencer process occurs. 3 years later, over 4 terabytes of collected data and over 300 individually recorded experiences, the MUPAS system can make predictions of experiencer events with high confidence. And I don't know. Some people would give a lot to be able to ascertain that this is coming. Some people, no. But at least this is there. If you are trying to get that, you've got a method. You can become part of the study and find out. So this is going to be tagged on to my interview with Jim Segala. He is developing this, has developed this. And if you're interested in it, you'll be able to reach out to him. And that being said, I'm going to say good night. I hope you enjoyed the show, that interview. I enjoyed him so much. But anyway, I'll see you next time. Same cat time, same cat channel. Good night.